Hello, 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 my beloved board. I found my board and my vault. Black Cherry Vault, Black Cherry and Tito's, the official drink of the Biz Doc. Just never before 9 a.m. Anyway, I'm messing with you. Okay, so we talked about a bunch of things related to movie critics and what is one of the biggest sites of the last 25 years that we all depend on to make decisions about the critics and ourselves, and that is, of course, Rotten Tomatoes. Last night was the Academy Awards of 2024. As we filmed this in March of 2024, a whole lot of films won. And they give out all the awards and everything. Oppenheimer, very cool film. Barbie, very interesting film. Only won one Academy Award. Oppenheimer swept everything. But those were great movies, and we agree they're great movies. But all the rest of the movies that you want to see, it's maybe not the next Avengers, the next Marvel, or something like that. And you really want to know what it's about. We've been trusting Rotten Tomatoes. So we're going to talk a little bit about some headlines that happened with Rotten Tomatoes that caused all of us to go, what? Rotten Tomatoes is potentially rotten itself? I can't trust them? Well, let's go on a little journey to find out where they came from and, most importantly, who owns them now, to see what you can trust and how they say they measure. And if they're telling the truth, that's how they measure. But more importantly, what are the messages? What are the things for you and me as we put our name out there? Maybe you are a custom barber and you depend on Google reviews, or you depend on Yelp in your town. You're using reviews too on a small scale. So let's take some lessons from Rotten Tomatoes on how we can have authentic reviews and get the most out of them. So here we go. So here's the headlines that are coming up, and this is how I kind of chose Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes under fire, that would be bad, after PR firm schemes are never good, to pay critics for positive reviews uncovered. What? A movie studio gave a bucket of money to a PR firm who gave it to critics to make fake reviews? Oh my gosh! Wait a minute. We all knew it. We would look at some of these reviews. We knew it. We would say, how does the audience say 90 and the critics say 30? How does the critics say 90 and I'm supposed to go here? And I spent extra money on 3D glasses, brought my niece and nephew, spent $40 for 3 people for tickets, and it sucked. Leading us to say, should you trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore? Inside the review manipulation scandal. These are headlines. This is not the Biz Doc writing here. These are headlines that are asking exactly the question that you and I are asking, especially with the cost of going to the movies nowadays. And of course, we have familiar, the rotten, the fresh, and then the certified fresh. We'll find out what that means. It's not just fresh, it's certified fresh. And finally, consumers like it, consumers don't. And let's dive in. So, oops, this is a little backwards. So anyway, I'll put everything up here. Sorry about the thing landing up backwards. Anyway, it was actually founded out there in California, technically in Berkeley, in stealth mode by Seng Duong. And he wanted to rate Jackie Chan action movies. So he starts writing this algorithm in his dorm at Berkeley to do that. And then he gets a couple people together for the launch, Patrick Lee and Stephen Wang, and they all worked at the place called Design Raptor. So basically, this guy gets his buddies, they all come together, he wants to rate Jackie Chan action movies. People are like, hey, that's pretty cool, why don't we go public and like rank other movies? And there's a story that goes with it, where there was a Jackie Chan movie that was supposed to come out, but it didn't come out, then it was delayed, and then it finally came out. And the story is during that gap where they're waiting for the next Jackie Chan movie to come out, because they were all excited and they would share this with a small group of friends, they said, well, hell, why don't we rate other movies? Ta-da! Rotten Tomatoes is born. So, in 2004, so 4 years later, it's doing pretty good. It was acquired by IGN. You know IGN, the video games rating site. You could go to IGN and you had all the individual channels, one for PlayStation, one for Xbox, one for GameCube, one for PC, and the purple one was for Jamdat Mobile, for mobile games. Yes, that's right, I was part of the Jamdat gang back in the day. And so it was acquired by IGN. So now Rotten Tomatoes is in a video game rating site. Okay, well that's interesting. So you've got the community of video gamers and the ratings for movies. no problem, no big deal. Congratulations, you guys, you got bought, you got some money. But the next year, IGN was acquired by News Corp, Fox, which also has 20th Century Fox and Searchlight. Uh-oh, they make movies. So how is it that now IGN is now inside News Corp for 20th Century Fox? And there's a couple people back in the day, and you can find, if you go way back into the era, I'm gonna really date myself here, CompuServe and other sites that said, hey, wait a minute, if Rotten Tomatoes is now part of this, won't 20th Century Fox movies get preferential treatment? Because they're owned by one of the, studios? Well, it was back there. Then, a year later, look at this. Boom, 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 boom. 2011, Warner Brothers acquired Rotten Tomatoes. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Excuse me, 2010, IGN News Corp sold it to Flixster, and then Flixster was bought by Warner Brothers. Then we find out, as part of the other consolidation, by the time it gets to today, NBC Universal owns 75%, and Warner Brothers Discovery owns 25%. Wait a minute. The independent review guys are owned by the mob. Okay, but did you see how this happens? This happens because startups that go good eventually get bought by somebody. And that somebody is sometimes a force or ownership that might impact the credibility of the brand. And that is kind of what happened. But we let it go and we kept using it. So how do they say it's measured? So we're going to go into how it's measured, because that's going to take us back to the controversy of how it got manipulated. So basically, this is the critics. And the critics would say if 60% of the critics didn't like it, it was rotten. If 60.1 to 100%, then it was fresh, but they would tell you how fresh. And finally, it would be certified fresh if it was 70%, with 80 reviewers and 5 top critics. So in other words, there was something in there. So to be certified fresh, you had to have 5 top critics, you had to be 70% on the tomato, and there had to be 80 critic reviews. That's quite a bit. In other words, there's got to be a very popular movie, like an Oppenheimer, that had enough critics willing to write about it, or bribed. Let's go look. So you had 5 from the top critics, a steady score, at least 75%. Limited release films needed at least 40 reviews, wide release 80. So there you have it. And then they have a note about TV shows that each season had to have at least 20 new reviews for the season, because you also see this for TV shows, like when they say TV shows, they mean like House of Cards, series that are made by Netflix or others, and that's you have to do. So that was how certified fresh was measured. So they're trying to get us to, why would they go to all the trouble in the middle of controversy? They're trying to get us to understand, please don't hate us. Please trust Rotten Tomato. Please, Coca-Cola, keep buying ads. They wanted you to understand that when we say certified fresh, there's a whole lot of things that go into it. But it doesn't take much to move the meter. And what if a movie's right here? What do you think that's worth to an opening box office? Because it's not certified fresh, it's just fresh or not. All they need to get this over the line, because 61% is fresh, and that, splat, is death. So now you see the incentive for the studios to do everything they can to get critics to move the needle, because this is what you and I are depending on opening box office weekend, when it's not Black Widow, the next Avengers, or a sequel that's had, like Top Gun Maverick, the sequel that's had so much hype that we don't need Rotten Tomatoes to tell us anything. It's a movie like Oppenheimer. What's an Oppenheimer? What's an Oppen? And how do you Heim it? No, that's a guy's name, and it's about World War II and bombs and other things. Okay, what's it all about? Well, that's where you and I are going to look at, see what all the fuss is about, and we're going to look at what the critics say when it's time for opening weekend. So then you get to you and me, the trustable Americans. And check this out. To receive a full bucket of popcorn, it's 60% of users give a film or show a star rating of 3.5 or higher. So in other words, 3.5 or higher is 70%. So we have to say 70% or better, because a 3.5 stars is 70. 4 stars is an 80. See what I mean? So the critics that got these numbers, this we're putting in stars because we know what 5 stars are. And why do they use stars? We use stars for everything. We use it for Yelp. We use it for Amazon. We use it for everything. So consumers like you and me understand stars, so there's stars. So 3.5 stars means it has to be 70% or more. And a tip bucket of popcorn, it's less than 60% of users of 3.5 or higher. So in other words, it's the percent of users that rate it 3.5 stars or higher. So it's not just 3.5 stars, you got to get that many users that have done that. So here you have 7,384 ratings, 4.1, that's a pretty you'd say that's the audience really seems to like it, because a lot of people at 4.1 here, suddenly the audience score, what does that match? What does that look like? What does that look like? Yes, you in the back? Amazon, correct. It looks like an Amazon rating. Or a book, oh, that book was rated by 700 people and it's only been out for a few months, like Choose Your Enemies Wisely or something like that. And there's a whole lot of people that have given it a high score. Must be a pretty good book, so I'll do it. Must be a pretty good, vacuum cleaner, mop, whatever it is you're getting at Amazon. So this was designed to be familiar with what consumers already see and how they buy things. Well, and then you compare it. So here's an example of a 94 and a 71. The critics loved it. Oh, I love the art. I love the dynamic. And I've always loved Emma Stone. Well, maybe that's real. Maybe that's authentic. She's won 2 Academy Awards. Good Lord. She's a wonderful actress. She's got a great draw at the box office. Maybe you love it. But when you put everything together, yeah, it was Emma Stone, but it's only like, It wasn't like Titanic, which is like 99.9. It was a solid movie, but nothing crazy. Oh, okay. Romantic comedy, maybe a little too long, but still gets about 71%. That's pretty good. So you can see it. But this is the methodology they were using. So they go from this methodology, which is very different on the critic side, to this methodology, which was designed to match kind of what we see in Amazon. Now that's smart. You want the people to say, oh, I get it. I know what this means. So here you have the audience score. So from there, what happened? Well, what happened was, before we get to what's next, we'll talk about what happened. There was a PR firm that was paying $50 per review to critics very early in the release of the film. And those critics would then write it. Now, they figured out who Rotten Tomatoes was using as the critics, and they went to those critics, because Rotten Tomatoes has what they call the pool of critics. So you hear them say, the president's giving a speech, and the reporting pool, those are the people, there's somebody authorized from ABC, CBS, Fox, Reuters, Daily Mail, all the independent resources. That's the pool of reporters that are authorized to cover the president. Guess what? Rotten Tomatoes has a pool of critics they use. What if you know who those critics are? And what if you know your movie's going to be on the edge? And what if you want to make sure that movie's fresh? And what if you had some money that the PR firm that just so happened was paid to you by the studio, because the studio goes to the PR firm, hey, can you work on the big release of our movie? And then you took some of that money and you're like, something for you, something for you, something for you, because you're not trying to get 100%. You're just trying to get to 61% so that it's fresh, and anything above it is good news. But now you end up with a scandal because it got exposed. And that's what the scandal was about, that the PR firm did it. Well, the people like me, when we read that, we were like, I knew something was fishy. I knew it. I've seen so many years, critics say 90, and I go to the movie, 30 at best, 90 for critics. They must just like the movie and they like the actor and actress or the director, or they liked $50. maybe that's what it was. So now then, what's next for Rotten Tomatoes? First of all, this is where I normally have what's next and what's in it for you. I'm putting them both on one slide for us. First of all, credibility is priceless. If you're trying to get reviews, like I said, Maybe you're a tattoo artist. Maybe you do custom haircuts and you have a van and you go and you cut people's hair in their house. I've seen people do that. Especially guys that go and there's like 5 guys together and they're putting designs on the side of their head in the shave and the fade and whatnot. And you want to be known as, you know, Joe, the super cool remote haircut guy. Well, guess what? Your credibility is priceless on Yelp. Oh, Joe came to the house, he did my 3 sons and me, it was great, wonderful fades, put some little stripes there for my kid and a lightning bolt from my other kid because they like that sort of thing. Great guy, good price, right? How valuable is that credibility? That credibility is priceless. Well, it's priceless for them as it is for us. In the case of Rotten Tomatoes, the audience is now skeptical. We were skeptical before, but now we're very skeptical because even though they said, no, the scandal's over, we're all done, everything's done, well, guess what? The audience is skeptical. And streaming transition is a catalyst. Why is it a catalyst? Because the theatrical war is almost over. For $250, we can get a 55-inch 4K TV in our house, along with a $99 soundbar and woofer, and we have a pretty damn good experience watching on streaming for $16 on Netflix a month, or $18, whatever it is now. But it's not $30 for a family of 3, mom, dad, and a kid to go see a movie. And by the way, $45 if it's 3D, so or more. So theatrical war is almost over. COVID started it, and streaming may finish it. You can still go to the theaters. There's a lot of good theaters out there. There's a lot of good theaters. You can get drinks and eat and stuff. But overall, the dawn of the 13 theater multiplex and everything, being on 3 of them in town, that's coming to a close. So that means that the people that make movies are desperate for reviews, and desperate people do desperate things. And lastly, ownership is known and problematic. We know who owns them, and many can't get past it. And that's not unreasonable. Oh, no. Don't look at that. Don't look behind the curtain. But many consumers can't get past the fact that right now Rotten Tomatoes is owned by 2 of the largest studio conglomerates, entertainment conglomerates. And they're like, how can they not be biased? How can they not walk down the hall? You know, we spent $400 million making this film. I need a 70% fresh on opening weekend, dude. And talk to some kid at the Cube. You tell me that doesn't happen? You're telling me that $750 million spent to make the most recent Marvel movie or something, that they're not desperate to make sure every box is checked to go live on opening weekend? Of course they are. So does it happen? I can't accuse Rotten Tomatoes of that, but those articles sure were pretty damning about what happened with that PR firm. So for you and me, credibility is priceless, and we need perfect credibility. Don't mess with the reviews. Whether you're selling something on Amazon or it's your Yelp or your Google review, let your yes be yes, your no be no, and let good people give you a good review and be known as the bright, shining example. It will pay you dividends. And as for this, we knew it was skeptical. So you know what? Wait for opening weekend. If you got to be there opening weekend because your kids can't wait to see Black Widow 6, then go. But for everything else, maybe let the Friday, Saturday of opening weekend go by and go wait and see what people like yourself are saying on Yelp, they're saying on Twitter, X, and are saying, yes, on Rotten Tomatoes when you get up to 500, 600, 700 people who have seen it and the popcorn is tipped over. Maybe sit at home, watch something on Netflix and save the bucks. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I enjoyed the lesson for us because it's a lesson in integrity, and I find more consumers than companies have integrity, unfortunately, and I'm happy to uncover it and happy to talk about it. So now, thank you for that. I'm gonna grab my vault, which you can get at Amazon. Black cherry, cucumber mint, watermelon, unlock your brain, no sugar, no caffeine, and I hope I unlocked your brain here, and I hope you enjoy the weekend and see a good movie, whether you're at home or at the theater.